Hey everybody, welcome to another Metal Gear Solid Talks. So today I kind of wanted to talk about something that I've wanted to talk about for a while, and I'm basically going to be talking about the relationship kind of between Liquid and Solid Snake. Uh, this isn't so much of like a factual video, although there are facts, but it's mainly kind of my own interpretation of like who they are and what they represent and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to explain outright, but you'll get the gist of it once I start talking about it. Uh, I've always felt like there's a really like dynamic relationship between Liquid and Solid because I feel like their personalities more they almost seem to represent like two halves of Big Boss. Like they almost have like a yin yang relationship, kind of like that. But to really understand what I'm going to be talking about with them, we have to kind of start at the beginning. And the beginning is basically Operation Snake Eater. This is the moment when Big Boss's personality kind of gets split. Like, this is when you really see, like, the two different sides of him. And this is where they start to emerge. And this is where I think, like, the opposites between Liquid and Solid better represented. But basically, during Operation Snake Eater, like Big Boss is, well, Naked Snake. I'll call him Naked Snake because I'm going to be talking about the boss and I don't want to get him confused. But Naked Snake's teacher, the boss, basically defects to the Soviet Union and he's sent on a mission to stop her. But to Snake, the boss isn't just like, his like senior officer or anything like that. I mean, she trained him. She made him who he is. Like he says, like she was like my mother and my master. It's like they went through hell together. It's something that normal people couldn't understand. Anybody on the outside of the relationship doesn't really couldn't really get how close they were. And it was I never got the gist of it being like any type of romantic relationship. It was more like he said, it was more like a mother son, more like a like just a master disciple type of relationship. But the events of Operation Snake Eater ultimately end up in a climactic fight between the boss and Naked Snake. And this fight really shows like how everything that Naked Snake was and is just this is what made him like this is the moment he changed because before this he was more of a he was a soldier. He was a loyal soldier. I mean, he looked up to the boss. I mean, there were even times in the game, especially when, you can tell how much respect he had for her. It's just like when they meet up and she's like, Jack, how long has it been? And he's like, 5 years, 72 days, 18 hours. I mean, like he remembers down to the hour the last time they saw each other. I mean, can you honestly say anybody in your life you remember exactly how long it's been since the last time you saw them? I mean, that's just like a crazy, like their attachment is something beyond. Like Eva says, it's like your relationship is something beyond a man and a woman. It's like she didn't want him to fight the boss, but it had to happen. It was the mission. It had to end this way. I mean, but then, they fight. Eventually, Naked Snake wins, and the boss is just laying on the ground, and she gives him the last piece of the legacy, and she basically tells him to kill her. And this is the hardest moment. Like this is this is like the part of the game where just man tears everywhere. But Naked Snake, he he shoots the boss and kills her. I mean, and this moment would haunt him like until like the very last moments of his life. He never really gets over this, and it changes his entire personality. He almost becomes a different type of person. The things he does and things he begins to do are all based on this moment. And this is really what it means when they say that he inherited the boss's will. Like, because this woman had such a big effect on his life. Not only creating him, but, you know, going beyond, even after she died, affecting the way that he lived. But when he kills the boss, it the split I'm talking about. Afterwards, he's distraught about it, especially when he finds out that this was all just a ruse. It was all part of the plan. This was just a mission. Like, her name was drugged through the dirt, and she'll be remembered as a villain, a terrorist, whatever. But she was really not. She was a loyal soldier. She was following orders. She was doing what she was supposed to do. It's like the only they sent her in as a double agent. She was supposed to be like spying on Volgan and everything, but Volgan fired a nuclear missile into Sokolov's research facility. It was a United States warhead. So in order to protect the U.S. from taking blame for it, they blamed it on the boss and made her a rogue agent and basically, sentenced her to death. And that was some fucked up shit. It's just like, and then you really see how this affects Big Boss, because especially afterwards when he's at that meeting and the I don't remember who it is exactly, maybe the president or something. Basically, they say to him, it's like, you're even greater than the boss. I hereby grant you the title Big Boss. And they pin that pin to him, and he just salutes. And then the guy reaches out to shake his hand, but he just holds that salute. It's because he knows what the deal is. He knows what the real truth is, and he doesn't like it. And that eventually will shape who he becomes. Like everything he starts to build after that, like the MSF, this Soldiers Without Borders, this ideology that there is a world for soldiers where they can exist and they can fight, but they don't have to be used or discarded or anything. He doesn't want people to have to go through what the boss went through. It's like, I mean, this woman, what she did was beyond like any any person. I mean, it's impossible to think of somebody actually being able to just do that. I mean, she sacrificed everything, and nobody even remembers her for it. Like nobody even like knows the truth. Only a few people actually know what happened, and that has such a big effect on. But that's why Big Boss eventually becomes like more ambitious. He becomes a leader. He begins to build something, and later on that starts to twist at him, and it starts to change him and make him into a different person. And this is really where it all began. This is where I think this is really where you see the kind of relationships between Liquid and Solid in relation to Big Boss, not just in relation to each other, but what do they represent of Big Boss more than genetics, actually personal traits, like things about Big Boss. So now that we've established kind of the beginning, I wanted to talk more about the other two. The first of the twin snakes I wanted to talk about was Solid Snake. Now, Solid Snake to me kind of represents Big Boss, like before Operation Snake Eater, like the type of soldier that he is. He's he's a great soldier. He has honor. He has a strong belief system, and he follows authority. Like he's never had reason to question it. One of the big things about Solid Snake that has always, stood out to me is the almost like the very similar relationship between him and Big Boss as Naked Snake and the Boss, like Big Boss and the Boss, whatever. Because basically, like Naked Snake was betrayed by the boss and then forced to kill her. Same thing happened to Snake, Solid Snake. Big Boss betrayed him during the Outer Heaven incident, and Solid Snake was forced to kill him. He was forced to kill his master, and Big Boss was the leader of Foxhound. Big Boss was his master. Big Boss taught him everything he knew. It's like, I mean, they had that master pupil type of relationship, and it's crazy that it's so weird that it happens the same way. It's just, you just see that kind of correlation between the two. Now, Solid Snake is forced to kill Big Boss, and he does. But he has a very different reaction to it than Big Boss had to killing the boss. Instead of, you know, taking this and trying to change the world and make it a place where, you know, where things like this don't have to happen, or by like drawing on this and finding some sort of profound like reason behind it or anything like that, Solid Snake is tortured by it. Like, it shook him to the core because, I mean, the man that he looked up to, the man that taught him everything he knew, the man he respected probably the most, turned on him and his everything, like, and put him in a situation where he was now forced to kill him. And like, Snake goes through some rough times after, like between Metal Gear 1 and 2. I mean, he basically he just checks out. He disappears for a while. He's living in a cabin on his own. He's plagued by like nightmares, just replaying the big boss's betrayal over and over again. But he never he never allows that to corrupt him, and that's a real thing about Solid Snake. It's like he's almost uncorruptible. He won't become a bad person. Even though bad things have happened to him, he doesn't let that change him or break him down or destroy who he is. He's I You always get that sense that, like, even though he's, you know, a hardened soldier and everything, he's kind of like tough as nails, but he isn't really a bad guy. You never really get that vibe from him. Like, he's never really mean to people, or you just never feel that like anger come out of him. Like, even against Big Boss, like Big Boss betrayed him, but I think he was more hurt than he was angry, and that's really what tortured him so much. And then again in Metal Gear 2, he has to fight Big Boss again, and it kind of gives him some sort of closure. Big Boss tries to explain how basically him and Snake are the same. Like, we're both soldiers, we both crave battle. This is where we live. This is what we are. But Solid Snake doesn't believe that. He believes that there is a life outside of war. He believes that he can have you can have the normal life. You can have happiness. You don't have to spend your entire life fighting. But at the same time, he believes that, but it's almost like he does the opposite. It's hard for him to escape it. Because both of the twin snakes they're pretty much trapped by fate because they are clones of Big Boss. They're they're tied into this predestined story that has to unfold, and they're just being drugged along by fate. That's just how, like in Metal Gear Solid 4, finally, when Big Boss confronts Solid Snake for the last time, and Big Boss tells him, he's like, "You're no longer a prisoner of fate." It's like, don't spend the time you have left fighting. It's kind of like after all these years, it's like Big Boss understands Solid Snake better. Like, he's kind of Big Boss has kind of let go of all that anger and everything from the boss's death, and he sees Solid Snake as more than just a clone. He sees him as a person and as a son. He says he's like, "Son, or should I call you brother," or whatever. One of the key moments in Metal Gear Solid 4, when they confront each other again, there's a part where Big Boss basically says to Solid Snake, he's like, "If you were put in the same position, I think you would have made the right choice." Basically talking about that moment when he had to kill the boss. Like he's saying, if it was you instead of me, then I don't think you would have done it, because that that part really shows how Solid Snake represents the part of Big Boss, like the good part of Big Boss that didn't want to kill his master, that should have, fought back, should have found another way, but he didn't. And that's something he always regretted. But he feels like Solid Snake wouldn't have made that decision because he can see the good in him. And that's kind of how I've always seen Solid Snake in relation to Big Boss. He's always kind of like the good side of Big Boss, like that's the side that was uncorruptible. But yeah, that's kind of my overall view of Solid Snake. Now I want to talk about Liquid. Liquid to me represents Big Boss after Operation Snake Eater, in kind of like a different way. He One thing about Liquid Snake and Big Boss is that's always had a real strong connection between those two is just their ambitions, like their leadership abilities and qualities and everything. Like I think Liquid Snake really represents that of Big Boss, because in Operation Snake Eater, like when you first meet Naked Snake, Big Boss, he's he's a soldier, he's a grunt, he follows orders, he looks up to his superiors, but he's not really a leader of anything. He doesn't really like take charge or like tell people what to do until afterwards when he inherits the title of Big Boss and he starts his MSF and he starts to build his Soldiers Without Borders and everything. He becomes a leader. Liquid really embodies that side of Big Boss, because Liquid does the same thing. He's a leader. He becomes the leader of Foxhound, Big Boss's old unit. He whittles down like the members to like a select few of special soldiers, and then he has the Genome Army. But to really understand Liquid, Liquid's kind of more of a complicated person because of what he is. Like I said, both of the twins are trapped by fate, but Liquid kind of has the raw deal. Like Liquid, you have to really understand Liquid's not just what he is, but like his view on what he is, because his entire life, or the majority of it, he has believed that he is basically he was basically created as a clone of Big Boss. But in the cloning process, they had twins. One that got the dominant traits, the strong traits, the like traits that were desired, and then one got the recessive traits, the lesser traits, the least powerful ones, whatever. But he believes that he inherited the recessive traits. And the only reason that they had twins was because it was the only way they could split the traits. So he's basically trash. He's basically the leftovers of an experiment in which they didn't even need him. Like he feels, I mean, like imagine how that would feel. Like it's more than just, he wasn't even born, he was created. And he was created as trash. And that's how he always felt. But the one thing you can never, like, whether you like Liquid or, you thought he was an a-hole or anything like that, you have to respect him, because he never let that stop him. That became his driving force in life. Like that became his ambition, but he never let that like really, you know, break him down, because a lot of people have been through stuff like this, and a lot of people, maybe some of you out there know what I'm talking about, but sometimes in life you feel like you just got a raw deal. Sometimes you just feel like you've been screwed or fucked over, and it's like nothing goes your way and nothing's easy because you don't have the things you need, and it's easy to just kind of break down and give up and quit. But Liquid never does that. In fact, he doesn't let it destroy him so much, but he rises and he tries to fight against it. And he's really ambitious, and his ambition is to become greater than Big Boss ever was. He doesn't want to live his life as a shadow or basically just a clone of Big Boss. He wants to erase Big Boss from the history books, and he wants people to remember Liquid Snake and not even remember Big Boss. He wants to be that one, and that's really what pushes him to do what he does, because his basic idea was to take over Shadow Moses Island, take control of the Metal Gear, and use his Foxhound unit and basically create his own Outer Heaven, and use that to rise to a station higher than the boss, higher than Big Boss. And Liquid's always Liquid's a really great character. I've always really liked him. He has almost a theatrical way of talking, which is like a necessity for all leaders. It's like you can't just talk as a leader. You have to be able to convey emotion and get people to not only listen but to like follow you. And that's something he does really well. Like that's something Big Boss does really well. He has the ability to get people to follow him. And so does Liquid. The problem with what happens to Liquid that I feel also happens to Big Boss is that eventually his ambition would be his downfall. Like the things that he was trying to do would eventually just corrupt him and kind of destroy his ideas and everything. Because basically that's what happens to Liquid. His ambition just went way out of control. I mean, he went rogue. He took over Shadow Moses Island. He was gonna make his own army. He was threatening people. He was so trapped by that one event, by that one thing that made him who he was, by the fact that he was a clone. That one thing pushed him to do all this. It's like that, just like the way Big Boss having to kill the boss changed him and pushed him to that point of extreme where it eventually just kind of ate away at him. He never overcame it. Neither of them did. That was the problem. And they used this as fuel to push themselves up higher. They used these bad things to push themselves up, but they never let it go. They never got over it. They never made peace. And eventually it just ate away at them. And it kind of destroyed them. And you eventually have that pivotal moment where Liquid and Solid fight each other, and Liquid, you can just tell how much he has so much animosity towards Solid Snake, because in his eyes Solid Snake is the dominant clone, but also Solid Snake got something that he never had the chance to do. Solid Snake got to confront Big Boss. Solid Snake got to defeat Big Boss, and that's something Liquid never got. Like Liquid never got his confrontation. He's fighting a legacy. He's fighting a shadow, but the person is gone. And the one that took him away, his brother, Solid Snake. And eventually those two fight, and Liquid dies from Fox Die, but he's kind of revived later on, especially in Metal Gear Solid 4. There's that part at the very end where you see Liquid Ocelot, and he, like, Snake's done gone through the room. He's done stopped Arsenal Gear. He's destroyed the AIs, and basically it's over. You know, the whole plan, the whole fight's over. But then Ocelot wakes him up, and they have another fist fight on top of, like, the Arsenal Gear. And that's like, it's almost it's a flashback of like the Metal Gear Solid when he fights Liquid hand-to-hand combat. It's like they always had that rivalry against each other, and it was almost like it was something peaceful between the two when they fight, because that's what they were. It's like they were soldiers. They understood battle. They understood fighting. No matter how messed up they were inside, like that's where their peace was. But yeah, that's kind of like my views on Liquid and Solid Snake, like kind of their personalities, and basically just what I wanted to talk about. And I hope you guys liked the video. Comment below. Let me know what you think. all the basics. Later.